Hi, welcome to the Rewind the Timeline podcast brought to you by thetimelinemachine.com. I am your host, the Timeline King. This is the podcast where we go back in time and take a look at all the pop culture anniversaries that have happened this past week. We're going to be talking about all the 10-year, 25-year, 50-year anniversaries and beyond of all the major releases in pop culture. This is episode 19 of this podcast, and for this episode, we'll be talking about the anniversaries that have happened from August 6th all the way until August 12th. Let us begin. First is August 6th. This is 25 years ago, August 6th, 1973. We have the birth of actress Vera Farmiga, who was born in Clifton, New Jersey. So I first saw this actress in the Netflix movie Special Correspondence, which was released in 2016. That movie was written and directed by Ricky Gervais. And I remember watching that movie and thinking the whole time that this is Kristen Wiig. So I always thought Kristen Wiig starred in the movie until I actually looked it up and found that it was a completely different actress named Vera Farmiga. It's funny how these two look very similar. In fact, both Kristen Wiig and Vera Farmiga were born in August 1973. Kristen Wiig was born on August 22nd, 1973, so she's only 16 days younger than Vera. But anyway, after I found out about Vera Farmiga, I also learned that she's been in a lot of movies. So she's essentially like the dramatic counterpart version to Kristen Wiig. Farmiga acted in The Manchurian Candidate. She was in Departed and The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I haven't seen any of those movies, but her performance is praised in those things. She's also acted in some genre films. She was in the Conjuring franchise, and she was in 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters, as well as the MCU TV show Hawkeye. Now, while I think she is a good actress, I don't think that she has had the best material to work with because, a lot of that recent stuff that she's been in, I wouldn't like it. But anyway, happy 50th birthday to Vera Farmiga. Next is August 7th. First is 25 years ago, August 7th, 1998. We have the release of the film Snake Eyes. No, this is not the one about the G.I. Joe character. This is a film with Nicolas Cage. I haven't seen this, so let's just move on to the next one. Also 25 years ago, August 7th, 1998, we have the East African embassy bombings. These were done by al-qaeda using truck bombs in front of the American embassies in Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The blast killed 214 people, and it was like the second time that al-qaeda had American targets. The first time was when they tried to set off a bomb at the World Trade Center parking lot in 1993. Looking back on it, it is easy to see this as like phase two of al-Qaeda's plan, and what would eventually become like phase three and 9/11. So, yeah. Next is 10 years ago, August 7th, 2013, we have the release of two films, Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters and We're the Millers. Percy Jackson is one of those like young adult teen franchises that like came in the wake of Harry Potter's success. It only lasted two movies, so that can tell you how good it was. I didn't really like the first Percy Jackson movie, and I like this one even less. Supposedly the Percy Jackson books are like way better, but I haven't read those. It's actually a shame because these movies didn't do better because I think like the actors are like really solid. Like Logan Lerman and Alexandra Daddario, I've enjoyed them in like whatever they've done before, and it's just a shame that they weren't given like a better script to work with. Hopefully, the upcoming Percy Jackson and the Olympians series on Disney Plus will prove to be like a better iteration of the franchise. But I mean, with Disney's track record lately, who knows? And We're the Millers, that's a movie that I really liked. I know this one didn't get good reviews when it came out, but I had a fun time watching it. And even now, like I still quote lines from this movie, like the time like Will Poulter's character says, "You guys are getting paid." Yeah, also prior to watching this movie, Emma Roberts was like always my celebrity crush, but that automatically changed to like Jennifer Aniston upon watching this film, and has remained that way ever since. I don't think this movie is perfect. I think there are definitely some story problems, but it's also not meant to like be taken too seriously. It's just meant to be like a movie that you just have some fun with. So happy 10-year anniversary to Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters, and We're the Millers. Nothing on August 8th, so let's move on to August 9th. First is 50 years ago, August 9th, 1973. We have the release of the film Gordon's War. This is another movie I haven't seen, but it has an interesting premise about four Vietnam vets battling Harlem drug traffickers. Hope to check it out one day. Happy 50 years to Gordon's War. Next, we move to 25 years ago, August 9th, 1998. We have the release of a few new OER cartoons. First is Protecto 5000. Now, a lot of the previous OER cartoons have been comedies, but this one actually has like a more serious tone. It deals with a robot who was built 250 million years ago in another galaxy who's come to visit Earth and somehow gets stranded here without his master. So he befriends a little kid in this short. So this is like the kind of story that you would see in like the Iron Giant or more recently in Bumblebee. But this short like does it well. It feels heartwarming, and it works well as a one-off short, but it also gives you enough of a setup so that you're wondering what could happen with these characters if they get more adventures together. Next is Ask Edward All About Babies. I think if I could describe this short, it would be a cross between Augie Doggy and Rugrats. The animation is very similar to like what you would find in the old school Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and the humor is very much like what you would see in Rugrats. Basically, the story is like two brothers. The older brother Edward tells his younger brother Emo the story about like where babies come from. Except these are little kids, right? Like, so what do they know? Edward just tells him that like babies come from eggs that the stork drops off. So Emo, being like the naive little brother, he finds an egg in his backyard outside, and he thinks that it is a new baby. And I thought this was like a very cute and funny short. So I could have definitely imagined a whole series with these characters. Although I admit it probably wouldn't have been that much different from Rugrats, so maybe it's probably better that it was a one-off. And last one this week was Pete Patrick and Persian Puss in What About Lunch. So this one was made by Vincent Waller, who also did Slap Tea Pooch. And compared to that, like I really enjoyed it. So whereas like Slap Tea Pooch felt like a throwback to the old Looney Tunes, this one, Pete Patrick, feels more inspired by the film noir and James Bond movies of the past. However, I didn't think Pete Patrick was a good enough character to make me want to see more of him, but I did feel like this short worked well as like a fun-off one. So happy 25th anniversary to Protector 5000, Ask Edward, and Peter Patrick, Private Investigator. Next is 10 years ago, August 9th, 2013. We have the release of two films, Elysium and Planes. So these are again movies that I have not seen, but I will give my thoughts anyway. When I first saw the trailer for Planes, I thought that it was supposed to be a joke. I felt like it was one of those like YouTube parody videos where people show look at how Disney's cash grabbing their properties this week. Evidently, like I was surprised to find out that it was like actually a real thing. Like not only was Planes a spin-off of the Cars franchise, but it was a theatrical spin-off. So usually these things like go straight to video or DVD. But surprisingly, it turns out that like the Cars franchise is actually one of like Pixar's most successful in terms of merchandise. So while the movies don't do that great, the merchandise sales are like very successful. Cars is also apparently like John Lasseter's baby, and he was the head of Pixar for like many years. So he really pushed for Cars to get its sequels. John Lasseter even wrote the story for this one. Though Pixar didn't actually make this sequel though, so that's why their name isn't on the poster. Planes was made by Disney Toon Studios, who was also the one who did like many of the direct-to-video sequels for Disney films, the ones that we got in like the late 90s, 2000s. And apparently, like Planes itself was a success because this movie got a sequel the following year with Planes Fire and Rescue. John Lasseter did announce a third Planes film titled Planes Beyond the Sky that would have dealt with like outer space. So it was supposed to be released in 2019, but obviously Lasseter got fired from Pixar around the same time, so it ended up being canceled. And now Disney Toon Studios like shut down as well, so we're unlikely to see a Planes 3 at all. I don't even think we're going to see like any more Cars movies, but like you never know. If we're getting like a Toy Story 5 in the future, then like pretty much anything is possible. Happy 10 years to Planes. And as far as Elysium goes, I will say that I was actually originally planning on watching this in the theaters. The film was directed by Neil Blomkamp, who also did District 9. which is not only like a great sci-fi movie, but it's like one of the few sci-fi films in history to have received a nomination for Best Picture at the Academy Awards when it came out in 2009. So I really felt like Elysium would be another chance to have this director shine at what he does best. Unfortunately, compared to like District 9, Elysium was not getting good reviews, so that didn't really motivate me to watch it, which is a shame because like who could pass up a bald Matt Damon. I did like the trailer for this movie, and I like the basic idea for what it has. So it seemed like it would have been an allegory for healthcare, with the Earth that Matt Damon lives in the year 2144 being somewhat like Mexico, and the orbiting ship that like Damon tries to escape to being the world's equivalent of Canada. It would have been like an interesting allegory to see, but alas, it seems like the movie did not stick the landing. But anyway, happy 10 years to Elysium. But before moving on to the next anniversary, I might as well talk about like Neil Blomkamp's latest film that came out. I managed to see Gran Turismo this week in a special preview screening. This movie takes its title from the PlayStation video game, but it's not actually an adaptation of the video game. It actually tells the true story of John Martinborough, who a teenager. Who, as a teenager, was a Gran Turismo player, and his video game school skills like won him a competition to become a professional race car driver. So and this movie like tells his story about like how he came to succeed in the field. So the movie doesn't actually break any like new ground in terms of like storytelling. Instead, it kind of goes the tried and true path. So it tells like an underdog story where like this guy named Jan, despite his inexperience and his setbacks and people doubting him, he still went on to become like one of the best. And for that, I think this movie like does a really great job. I would definitely recommend it for anyone looking for like a feel good story. And it seems like after the disappointments of Elysium and Chappie, Blomkamp has once again proven that he is a competent director. So yeah, check out Gran Turismo in theaters. So there's nothing on August 10th, so we move to August 11th. First is 50 years ago, August 11th, 1973, we have the release of the film American Graffiti. This is a movie directed by George Lucas, and I can imagine that a lot of it is based on his own life. The movie is set in 1962 and deals with high schoolers on the last day of summer vacation before they go to college. I think this is a really good film and worth checking out. Star Wars fans should be thankful since George Lucas's success with this movie is what allowed him to have the money to make Star Wars in 1977. American Graffiti was also Lucas's first collaboration with Harrison Ford, who would later go on to play Han Solo in Indiana Jones. So altogether, like a good milestone film in the history of George Lucas and of Star Wars. And even though George Lucas wasn't directly involved, American Graffiti did get a sequel in 1979 with More American Graffiti. So that was actually like the last live action film to star Ron Howard. And then in 1994 we got a sort of prequel titled Radioland Murders, set in 1939. So altogether, this film was a success. Happy 50 years to the film American Graffiti. And next is also 50 years ago, August 11th, 1973, we have the birth of hip-hop. So with the birth of hip-hop, we actually have an address for it at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx, New York. And we know that address because it is where Clive Campbell lives, who's known by his stage name DJ Kool Herc. So he threw a party that day, and then during that party that he was emceeing, he used like a blend of breaking, scratching, and rapping. So while being the party's MC, and all of that became known as like the birth of hip hop music. So and that's like still popular to this day. I'll admit though I'm not like a big hip hop listener, but obviously like this is a big moment in like music history that should be acknowledged. So happy 50 years to hip hop music. And last thing for August 11th, this is 10 years ago, August 11th, 2013. We have the premiere of the TV series Hulk and the Agents of S.M.A.S.H. It's weird that I'm like a big Marvel fan, and yet I never heard of the show before I made this. I asked around, and like a couple of the people who have seen it have said that it is like a very kid-friendly version of Hulk, where Hulk is like able to speak intelligently and not get angry all the time. That doesn't actually sound like Hulk to me, but anyway, check it out and make your own judgment. The entire series is available on Disney Plus for those who want to watch it. Happy 10 years to Hulk and the Agents of S.M.A.S.H. Now we go to August 12th. The first is 35 years ago, August 12th, 1988. We have the release of the film The Last Temptation of Christ. I have not seen this movie. That seems to be a theme this week. But I have heard that this is one of Martin Scorsese's best films. William Dafoe stars as Jesus Christ, and it deals with his temptation when it comes to like fear, anger, and lust. I suppose it shows that even though Jesus was the Son of God, he was still very much a man, in the way that he was like tempted by life. So check this out for anyone who wants to see it. Happy 35th anniversary to the Last Temptation of Christ. And lastly, for this episode, we have 10 years ago, August the 12th, 2013, the premiere of the TV show Paw Patrol. So obviously a show with cute puppies on Nickelodeon is going to appeal to a lot of people. So it should be no surprise that Paw Patrol is still continuing 10 years later, having aired for 9 seasons and 231 episodes so far. I think it is Nickelodeon's second longest show, only behind like SpongeBob SquarePants. I've seen a couple of episodes. The humor is very kid friendly. It's more Nick Jr. than actual Nickelodeon. But I think if you have like 6 to 10-year-old kids, they will like it. There is a Paw Patrol movie coming out next week. Paw Patrol, the Mighty Movie. So the franchise is remaining strong for the foreseeable future. And yeah, happy 10 years to Paw Patrol. And those are all the anniversaries for this week. Come back next week for episode 20. Follow us on our social media pages to keep up to date on all the latest anniversaries. We are on Facebook at The Timeline Machine and Instagram at Waste My Time Machine. Also check out our website, thetimelinemachine.com, for more great content. And remember, keep rewinding the timeline. Bye.